What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Talking Sports with Manny, and this is your host, Manny. Let's get it. Ever wanted to make a podcast but never really knew how? Well, Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. There's a creation tool that allows you to record right from your phone or computer, and as well as editing as well. Anchor will distribute your podcast to places such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also monetize from your podcast. You can download the Anchor app for free at the App Store, or you can go to anchor.fm to get started. So guys, things are heating up in the NBA with the season approaching to start July the 31st. Tons and tons of news to get to, tons of topics to get to. So buckle up your seatbelts. It's going down, and let's get to it. So guys, my stance on players not going to Orlando is, number one, players who have health issues, I have no problem. Players who don't want to play because of social reform, I have no problems. Players can choose to do what they want to do. That's on them. But the NBA has stated that if you don't play, you don't get paid. And, players are willing to forfeit that. We're going to start off with Davis Bertans. He decided not to go. He was averaging 16 points a game this year with the Washington Wizards. Very, very, very good player. A player that the Wizards were able to acquire from the San Antonio Spurs. And, for Davis Bertans, he's had 2 ACL tears in his career. Obviously not in the NBA, maybe playing pro in Europe, but he's decided to not go to Orlando, and you can't fault him because he's due for a contract, a big contract, and we're talking anywhere from $15 to $20 million, maybe even more, depending on if teams are willing to spend the money. But he is one of the top shooters in the NBA, probably one of the top 3 catch and shoot shooters in the NBA. And I know, you got guys like Curry and Clay out there, but if you really look at tape on Davis Bertans, you guys will really see how great this guy is. So, guys, moving on to Victor Oladipo, you guys know that he's been banged up this year, and, he's trying to weigh his options on whether, he'll be ready to commit to playing in Orlando. Personally, I feel that Victor Oladipo is not 100%. He hasn't been 100% even when he did return. It might be best to sit this one out, fully recover, add a piece or two to the Pacers, and then try to push for a championship next year. I don't think that they are going to come out of this first round. So why risk, your best player getting hurt again? Over the past few years, he's been hurt. So why not just rest your body, being that the next season is going to be starting in December. So there's really no gap to really rest. So if I'm Victor Oladipo, if you're listening, rest your body, do what's best for you. Moving on. So some of the key points that came up this week in the NBA was, replacement players. There are going to be players who test positive for the coronavirus. Now it's all about replacing these players. So the NBA has created, or they're going to put in place, a replacement pool, starting with the playoffs. And these players, are going to have either 0 to 3 years worth of experience. So the pool is going to be players that are in their first year to their third years in the league. That way, kind of making it a fair playing field. Moving on along, teams are allowed to have 4 players in the facility starting June the 23rd until June the 30th. Okay. Now, starting July 1st to the 9th, it now increases from 4 players to 8 players. And then from there, it's going to grow up until when they leave for Orlando for full training camps. So starting to get interesting. Teams are really starting to, scheme and trying to figure out what they're going to do as they proceed. Now, I know that, people are backing out left and right. So there is going to be a finalized roster, and the NBA is doing everything in its power to create an avenue to where teams can replace players fairly. So, guys, this week is a big week for certain things to happen in the NBA, and it started today already, the 23rd. Coronavirus testing began, as well as transaction window for all 30 teams. I'm going to get into a little bit of both of those shortly. Wednesday, which is tomorrow, a player should notify his team if he's not playing. I'm going to get into some players that have already notified their teams that they aren't playing. Saturday is a day that 2-way contracts for only the 22 teams in Orlando can be signed. Then Sunday is the last day to waive a player, and the deadline is 5 p.m. Eastern. So, speaking of the coronavirus testing, last week, Nikola Jokic tested positive for the coronavirus while he was in his home, Serbia. So he's scheduled to return to the U.S. to start to prep himself for Orlando, but he was kind of delayed. He has to clear over there before he's allowed to get on a plane. So sometime this week, he should be clear to fly. So, people are going to be positive for this testing, but the NBA is definitely doing everything that they can to put things in place to where, like I mentioned earlier, where you can replace players. Players will have an opportunity to self-quarantine for 10 to 14 days. If this happens in the playoffs and even in the, play-in season, players are prepared for it. Everybody knows what's at stake. Everybody knows that this virus is very serious. So NBA is taking every precaution to, make their players safe and make the league safe as well. So Trevor Ariza opted out of going to Orlando with the Portland Trailblazers. He's been dealing with a case over his 12-year-old child. The mother of his child is granting him a month's visitation to, see his kid. So you got to respect it, man. I look at it like this: God first, family second, and everything else. So, if Trevor Ariza wants to spend time with his kid and not play basketball, I'm okay with that. Anybody who has a problem with that, talk to me. Let's go. Nah, just kidding. But, it just is what it is, man. You got to respect his decision. Also, Corey Brewer just signed with the Sacramento Kings. Man, shout out to Corey Brewer, man. I met this guy in an airport, and he's from Nashville, Tennessee. Well, Portland, Tennessee, close to where I live. And he's a down-to-earth kind of guy, man. And, he plays good defense and shoots the 3-ball decent. So guys like that always find a job. And shout out to him, man. Sacramento's willing to pay, even though Sacramento might not do anything, but he's going to get paid. So I'm proud of him, man. I'm all about people pushing for their dreams. DeMarcus Cousins has elected to sit out the rest of the season to rehab. Lakers let him go and signed Markieff Morris. And he's been rehabbing at the Lakers facility, and he still has very strong ties with the Lakers. I believe if the Lakers called him and told him to, come on, I think he would play with the Lakers. But even though he had interest from several teams, he just elected to, sit back, kind of continue to rehab and come back in our 2020 season fully healthy, which might be the best thing for him. So I'm proud of DeMarcus Cousins for making that decision. It's a tough decision because, as a hooper, you always want to play. You always want to, maximize your opportunities, being that he can play for a contender and possibly get a ring. But then again, one injury or another tweak to a previous spot on his body where he's been injured before can totally knock him out. Now, there's been some teams that have been unlucky during this time. For example, the Dallas Mavericks shooting guard, Courtney Lee, he suffered a freak accident, calf injury, and injury like this, you're not granted a replacement player. So he does count as one of the 15 players for the Mavericks, and the Mavericks also get a two-way contract. So they'll definitely try to, add somebody on a two-way if they haven't already, to help to subdue the loss of Courtney Lee. So sometimes, you get unlucky, and it happens. It's all a part of the game. Injuries are part of the game. All right, guys, for some Laker news, Anthony Davis can exercise his $28.8 million player option October the 14th. And that's a day after Game 7 of the NBA Finals, if there is a Game 7. Also, today, breaking news, Avery Bradley decided to opt out of going to Orlando. And, and it was for a good reason, so I respect it. He's been dealing with the well-being of his oldest of 3 children. His 6-year-old son has a history, struggling with respiratory illness, and, he would not have been medically cleared to join Avery Bradley and the rest of his family in the bubble in Orlando. So, he just elected not to go and to be with his family. So once again, guys, God, family, and everything else. So I respect that. But as a Laker fan, man, this is going to hurt because this is the best perimeter defender that we had. So now it opens up the door to where we can sign a guy like J.R. Smith, which the Lakers are the front runners right now to sign J.R. Smith. You've heard of names like Jamal Crawford out there. I don't see them getting a Jamal Crawford. If the Lakers do sign somebody else, it's going to be a bigger wing. So J.R. Smith does fit the bill. He's going to give them shooting, some scoring, but not the defense that Avery Bradley was giving them. So now it'll be time for guys like Alex Caruso to step up and show what he's made out of. He's a very good defender in his own right. Guys like KCP will have to step up even more. There'll be minutes to go around for newcomers such as Dion Waiters. And then, they'll play the hot hand and see who's hot between JR and Dion. But I still think the Lakers have enough to win the championship. Now, if Dwight Howard opts not to go, then things kind of change a little bit, because now they'll be lacking on the front court, being that they're not so deep at the front court. Even having Markieff Morris, he's not going to give you what Dwight Howard gives you. So in later days, we'll see what Dwight Howard's decision is. Like I said, tomorrow is the deadline for players to tell their team whether they're going to Orlando or not. So Avery Bradley not playing is definitely big news for the Lakers and the NBA world in general. The Brooklyn Nets signed Tyler Johnson to a deal. So that's going to be a player that's going to be able to help them during this play-in season as well as the playoffs. Tyler Johnson is a nice guard, 6'3" guard, lefty. He can score the ball. People sleep on him. You know, it's sad that it took him this long to find a job, but he's definitely going to be a nice piece. David Nwaba signed with the Houston Rockets. He's a Laker legend, as Laker Twitter always says. But no, seriously, David Nwaba is a very good defender. He's a guy that's not going to score for you, but he'll play tough defense, and he can rebound being a 6'3" guard. So very good signing by the Houston Rockets. So, guys, as I wrap up this pod, tomorrow, when these results come out, there's going to be a lot of people who test positive. There's been a team in the Western Conference who has had up to 4 players positive the last couple weeks. So, you know, the NBA is definitely trying to, you know, give teams this quarantine period to where, you know, teams can, you know, get their players quarantined, self-quarantined before training camp starts and before heading to Orlando. So, guys, don't be surprised if some names and some news come out tomorrow and you're like, wow, this guy has the virus, this guy has the virus. The good news is that the NBA is definitely putting something in place that's going to help. And then, you know, the NFL is going to see what the NBA is doing. The, MLB and the NHL are going to see how the NBA is approaching this virus and what they're doing to treat it, or, you know, trying to keep the league and players safe. So it's definitely going to be interesting. I'm hoping for the best for players and families affected, that people can get back to normal health, hoping that this virus, gets behind us. But in the meantime, we have to live with it for now. We have to prepare as you guys go out into the world and work. You know, be safe, wash your hands, wear your mask, social distance, and things of that nature. We just really gotta be safe. You know, we saw 2 cases of NBA players opting out to spend time with their family. You know, most players don't want to be away from their family for 2 to 3 months. So, you know, people got to do what's best for them. We saw people like Bertans, you know, sitting out because of previous injury and playing, you know, gearing up himself for the contract to come. So you're going to hear more and more in these next 24 to 48 hours of people not going for various reasons. You're going to, you know, hear about positive testing, and then you're going to also hear about what the NBA is doing, about these positive testings. But that's it, man. Woj and Shams and Bobby Marks was just blowing up Twitter today, so I just felt I should come on here and talk about it. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in into another episode. I appreciate the love that you guys are giving me out there on all the social media platforms. Be sure to share this podcast with one other person. Please leave me a review on the Apple Podcasts or whatever platform that you do use. Subscribe, share, follow me on Twitter at TS with Manny, Instagram, TS with Manny, on Facebook, Talking Sports with Manny. Thank you guys so much. And if you guys have any comments, be sure to hashtag TSWM, Talking Sports with Manny 2020. Thank you guys so much. Love y'all. Y'all be safe out there. There's a lot going on. Just please, please, please be safe out there. Love you guys.